This video tutorial is intended for the Stage 6 Software Engineering New South Wales syllabus, topic Programming for the Web. We will start dot point 9 on the syllabus, Investigate CSS and its impact in the design of web applications. So before watching this, you should have covered HTML basics, HTML structures, tags, attributes and elements, and how you can use them to compose a web page. What we're really focused on today is the styling, or the cosmetics, and a short history of why. So CSS is all about the style. HTML was never intended to contain tags for formatting a web page. It was always just about the content. What are the words? Not how they look, not how they're presented, not how they're stylized, just what is the content. Unfortunately, that got muddied along the way, and HTML3 allowed you to embed things like font and color attributes. I know you guys were doing some italic stuff the other day. You can actually do it within HTML, and the whole idea of this really clean separation of content and style got a little bit messed up. So we're really web developers are spending quite a long amount of time realigning and campaigning for the separation of these two concepts. Just so I suppose the logic is clean. This is the content. This is the style. So CSS or cascading style sheets are designed to be a separate document that dictates the style. In terms of the syntax rules of CSS, it goes selector and then the declaration. So the selector points to the element, if it's H1, P, the div container, whatever it particularly is, and then the declaration is the property name of the value. So if it's color, font, bold, whatever it particularly is. The declaration block can contain one or more declarations, and each property has a specific set of values that it accepts. So we're going to come back to properties, different types of properties that you can do in CSS. So the selectors are an important thing. You can select either an element, and that's a pretty targeted element like I just gave, like P, paragraph for example. By using the CSS selector P, you will change any P elements in the entire HTML document. You can do a class selector, so similar to object-oriented programming, you can select a class. You do that by prefixing it with a dot, and that's anything within that container, and any element, so it can be multiple elements with those specific class attributes. An ID selector targets specific elements with a specific ID. So not just all header or all paragraph or all header one, but the main header. So you can go quite granular like that. In terms of the attributes, attribute selectors target them based on an attribute and the value. So a CSS rule will apply a blue border in this example to all the input elements that have a type attribute with the value text. So if you have a look here, this is the CSS input type text, give them a border. That's any text. That's not based on, if they're in the paragraph, if they're outside of the paragraph, and they're in container or in that class. That's any input text that it will do it. That will do it to. Descendant combinators target all elements that are descendants of a specific element. For example, here the div, the paragraphs within the div, they'll make them they'll make them the color red. Any children within that. Here's how you create a CSS file. You have two choices. You can either create a CSS file in an entirely separate file. That's usually the best practice. An entirely separate file to the HTML, and you simply at the top of the header, so in the header tag of the HTML file, link the style sheet by following something similar to this. Obviously, the mystyle.css, whatever the name of your CSS file is, .css, that's the file path. You remember href is about that, the linking, that href attribute is the linking of something to another. So this will be, in this example here, you are linking the HTML document in the header tags to the style sheet. If for some magical reason you only have one page in your HTML document, God knows why, but if you only had one page, you can actually do it within the style tag of the header section in a HTML document. You can actually throw it in there, but as you know, it gets really messy. It's usually easier to keep the CSS document separate. I mean, it does have the advantage if you only have one page. I can't think of a site that only has one page, but if you do, you can do it internally. In CSS, every element is considered as a box with 4 areas. Content with a width, padding, border, and margin. So yes, everything in CSS is content, but there's a margin top, left, bottom, and right, a padding right, left, top, and bottom. So if you think of everything like a box model, in this div, you can obviously set out attributes here, margin with a 10 pixel value, a border, padding, width, and height. These terms, or these attributes that you're applying here, this is what it would look like visually. So please throw this CSS box model and this concept into your notes because it's very important. Now, these preceding slides that you will have access to are basically a whole lot of tags and properties that you can get your head around. I'm not going to go through them now. Their intention is to be as a reference for you when you're working through and going, oh, what was that? What was that attribute for text? Oh, yeah, decoration. Oh, what was that attribute? Oh, if I want to align the text, this is how I do it. So this is the concept. That is my CSS tag. And the same thing goes for background properties. The same thing goes for positioning. And that's it, guys. That's the basics of CSS.